Hey guys, John back here again with another item categorizer video. So I am going to make a world download of this in case anybody wants to check it out. And with that being said, this is kind of a junk model that I use to test out some new ideas. Um, so it's just here. It's a big eyesore, but you can look at it if you want to. So this is going to be uh, the categorizer that I have been working on for probably like the last 2 weeks. Um, so this one was kind of a beast to make, and I'll give you a rundown of how it works and let you see it in operation. But it was extremely difficult. Some of the main problems that we have with these types of systems are the minecarts. The minecarts, the way that they act, the way that they bump into each other and go backwards, and the way that they glitch into each other, it can always cause a lot of issues. Of course, in this case, with the minecarts glitching into each other, we're actually taking advantage of that. But so let's just throw some items. Well, before that, let me explain what it is. So similar to my last models, we have 4 filter items preloaded in a minecart. And in this case, I just went all out and I have 2 minecarts that are going to be filled with the input items. And they are both going to be launched to search through the index and take their items to their output. So I'll get into that more in a second, but let's just go ahead and throw some stuff in here. And pretty much all of this. Okay, so we already have 2 taking off. So the way that the input system works, we are basically just taking our input items from the chest and we are separating that into 2 different inputs. So because we're using 2 hopper mine carts that can each pull items out at different rates, or not at different rates, but at different times, they can essentially act independently. So instead of having a system to where the 2 minecarts pull from the input chest, we have to break that down into 2 different streams, and that way the minecarts can act independently from each other. So in this case, if we do put in a certain, like an odd number of items, something like that, then one cart can still launch with the items even though the other cart may be empty. Yeah, pretty much independent. Everything on this system had to be made to allow the minecarts to be independent. So we had to have 2 different minecart stacks, things like that. But of course, the 2 minecarts are going to both fill with items, and this is kind of like a minecart buffer. So the input can actually fill the minecarts with items faster than we can search through the index. So we're just controlling a minecart launcher here with a hopper clock, and that's going to feed the minecarts into the index at a rate which allows the minecarts to not, cause any issues with each other. So this type of index is something that I came up with to allow the minecarts to, you can see how it operates. Whenever a chest gets selected down there, the piston is going to push a block forward or push the honey blocks or slime blocks forward, and that's going to cause the track to, complete the loop here to allow the minecart to go into its output. Whenever the minecart passes over the hopper here, that's going to pull out the index item and deposit that back into the chest. And the way that the output operates, which you can kind of see here. So a lot of this design is not something that I came up with myself, and this input system is something that was developed by another YouTuber named Frost Chocula, and I actually stole some other concepts from him as well. But Frost Chocula came up with this idea to create a double hopper speed minecart unloader, and so the previous systems that I came up with, uh, how do you say, they relied on the fact that the minecarts stacked on top of each other and then were launched as they became empty. But in this case, to really compact the design, we're using rails here for the minecarts to just fall into the same area. So we had to come up with some pretty complex circuitry to control this trapdoor to allow the minecarts to exit. So there's always going to be a downside to a system like this. Actually, there's two different downsides. So the first downside is that because we are unloading multiple minecarts at the same time, there's always going to be a chance that we're going to have a new minecart come in while we have other minecarts exiting. And that would allow a minecart that has items in it to make its way into the output. So we can take care of that further down the line. But one of the other issues with this type of system that I've been looking into is that if we were to put in a very large amount of items, just say like an entire chest full of a single item, then that's going to consume pretty much every one of our minecarts. Because the system operates on the fact that, let's just take a bunch of cobble here. So I can show you with a single type of item. So if we put a bunch of one item in here, then the minecarts are all going to fill with generally about 55 items. And they are going to come into the output. And I'll explain the way that this index works in a second, but and why it's broken down into sections like this. So the way that this unloader works, the minecart pulls in and it begins to have its items pulled out. But because we have more minecarts arriving, we have a delay circuit here to prevent the minecart from being launched for a certain amount of time, just to prevent it from trying to open while we have a new minecart arriving. And because of that, that means that the entire system is going to stay locked up through the duration of the items being pulled out. So as more minecarts come in, I put in a lot of items. So as more minecarts come in, you can begin to see the downside of this type of system, which is that until every one of these items gets pulled out, these minecarts are all going to occupy this output, which means that now we only have about half as many minecarts that can be used as we did before, which is fine because now if I wanted to throw something else in, then I can. So I can throw some other items in, and those can get launched, and those can go through and sort while the cobblestone is still being unloaded. But the issue is that if we put in a massive amount of items, like an entire inventory of a single item, or see, so there's some other items coming out to be sorted now. But if we were to put in something like an entire chest full of an item, then that's going to consume pretty much every minecart. So then if we continue to put items in, they're going to have to wait for all of this item type to be empty before they will even begin to get sorted. So it kind of ruins the whole purpose of the parallel item sorting, because now we just have a bunch of empty minecarts sitting here because we have, one or two minecarts that are still being unloaded. So I think that if I could change something, it would be, I would probably add some type of a timer to this output circuit to where if we are unloading an item for, a certain amount of time, then regardless of whether it finished or not, we just go ahead and open the gate and allow all the minecarts to exit. And that way, if there's still like 3 minecarts that did not get unloaded, then they can get, sent back into the input. But, all the other 27 or whatever minecarts that were still being held can go back into the input and, be used to sort other items. So let's get more in depth into how this system operates. So the index, the way that this works, you can see that we pull an item out, and if it matches, or if the minecart's item matches the item in the index, it's going to get pulled out. And typically we have a loop of a rail here, but just say that if we were to, let me make sure that we don't have any more carts coming in. Okay, so if we were to pull out the cobblestone, which I'll just do that, so the looping rail here is going to get switched, and that's going to allow the minecart to come into the back. So because we have a minecart with 4 filter items in it, we're just going to pull those 4 filter items out here, and then the minecart can just come up here and go to its output. And there's no need for any type of latching system or resetting or whatever, because the minecarts do that automatically on each section of the output, or each section of the index. So they're going to hit a detector rail here, which is going to reset before they even enter the index. All right, so the reason why this is broken down into sections, which a lot of you can probably already surmise, is that just say if we had a complete index with no breaks in between the chest, which you can do if you wanted to, then just say that if we do pull out the cobblestone here, then our minecart would have to travel all the way down the entire duration of the index. It would have to loop around and then come back all the way on top to find its output. So that takes a very long time. But in this case, if we have a smaller section of index here, then the amount of time that it takes for the minecart to pull the item and then to go back through this switching rail here is much, much shorter. The reason why we can shorten the index like this is because we're not using any type of a signal or latch. We're not using anything like that to say, hey, the items went into the output, so send another minecart. We don't need to do anything like that. The only thing that we need to do is send the minecarts in at a certain rate to where the first minecart, if it does pull out an item, then it's going to come on top and it's going to, drop the item off in the hopper. So whenever the first minecart is pretty much in this general area, then we can already have another minecart launched and pretty much on top of the reset. So just by using a hopper clock, we can time this out, and then no matter where the minecarts go, whether it's going to be in this index or in this one or this, or no matter what slice of index they find, none of that matters because the timing is going to allow for the first minecart to always exit and then another one to come in behind it. So this is an idea that I got from Frost Chocula from his double hopper speed item categorizer video. So he broke down his index like this. As a general rule of thumb, like in this system, we could actually shorten this down to like 3 slices here if we wanted to. And as a rule of thumb, the smaller your index section is going to be, then the faster the minecart will search the index and make its way to the output, which means that we can increase the rate that we launch the minecarts through the index. So we could actually make this much faster. The only downside is that if I were to make that like 3 chests, then I would need to have this the switching rail part directly after the 3 chests. So that would be like 3 chests, then 2 rails, then 3 chests, then 2 rails. So that would pretty much double the size of the sorter here. So anyway, that's kind of a small issue for me because I would rather have it be somewhat compact and maybe a little bit slower as compared to being not compact at all and faster. So anyway, that is the output section. So one of the issues I really had to do a lot of work here with the minecarts. So one of the issues that you have with this type of system is that whenever this gate opens, if we have a lot of minecarts here and the gate opens, the minecarts can exit and still be glitched into each other. They can still be like occupying the same location. So I had to try to make a lot of different things to account for that because one of the main problems that you're going to have with minecarts is that they're always going to be buggy and glitchy, and you have to really have a lot of redundant systems to take care of that. So in building this other design, the most problems I had were with the minecarts exiting the system. So when this is really heavily loaded and you have a lot of minecarts coming out at once, the minecarts have a tendency to bump into each other, to go backwards, to glitch out of blocks, do things like that. So that's why this is so janky like this. It's because I kept having issues and I didn't really know how to correct it. Because once the minecarts enter the water elevator over here, they have to pick up their 4 filter items again. And you have to have very precise minecart timing so that they don't bump into each other and they don't go backwards and pick up multiple items, things like that. So this one was just a real nightmare. So the way that we are handling all those issues in this one is by having multiple tracks here. So when the minecarts kind of explode out of here, they all fall down. And if they are glitchy, I will show you how or if they are like glitched into each other, I'll show you how we take care of that in a second. But really, we just allow to have enough space of track here because the minecarts are initially going to fall down into this one. And then from here, they are going to fall down into this one. And then from here, they are going into the specialized minecart launcher that Frost made. So that's going to help take care of any other issues. So like I'm saying, redundancy. You need a lot of redundancy. So in each part of this minecart output section, we have things to try to handle any glitchy minecarts. So we have a special circuit up there for that. Frost made this minecart ejector here, or minecart launcher here. And this helps if you have minecarts that are glitched together. This helps to launch them correctly. But the main goal of this section is to let the minecarts do all their foolishness up there, bounce around, go backwards, whatever. And then we're going to use a minecart launcher here to eject the minecarts in a very controlled manner. And that way, if they have any issues, it's going to be up there and not down here. So here they can pass by and get their filter item. or like I said earlier, because there's going to be a chance that we eject a minecart that still has an item, then we can take care of that here. So using a comparator here, we can have what we call the diverter rail, which is if there is a minecart with an item, it's going to come down here. It's going to have its 4 filter items put back in, and then it's just going to go back into the output to go back up to search the index. So if there are items left in a minecart, that's handled automatically. But if we have any other issues, if the minecarts are too close together, we have a little section here that we'll just take the minecart and shoot it straight back up to the top, where it's going to come into this little water elevator and just bounce around up here until it's ready to exit. So, like I said, redundancy. So the minecart launcher handles the timing between the minecarts, but if 2 should happen to be too close, then this will take care of that. All right, so let's go over how we take care of minecarts that are glitched together, and also some other bugs that I found. So using a circuit like this, which I'll just start it up, but we have a clock, 2 clock. So if we have a bunch of minecarts that are occupying the same location, so hopefully that'll be enough to kind of make the point. Let me just dig a hole down here so they can all like exit. All right, there should be plenty of room. So if the minecarts are kind of like glitched together, then using a small section here with rails that are being intermittently powered, we can actually separate the minecarts. So you'll see what I mean. So you can see that, yeah, of course they do go backwards and forwards and whatever. Oh, you didn't make it down the hole? Okay, let's just put a block here and go down. Yeah, and there's always going to be a possibility that one is going to get stuck. But like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter because this is going to be in the section where the minecarts can just do all their foolishness, and you know, we just really need them to be separated and not glitched together. So, oh, okay. So that didn't work. So it's a combination of typically you don't have like 8 of them that are glitched together. It's a combination of the circuit plus, you know, like having enough space for them to kind of spread out. So that is one thing that I kind of found out with the circuit is that if you have a section of rail like this that will work to slow the minecarts down, then once they are slow, they can begin to accelerate again. So it's like having a bottleneck in traffic. You know, if you've ever been on the interstate and seen a bunch of cars piled up from an accident, and they're all like in the right lane and cops are just letting people go in the left lane, then as soon as you get past the accident, it's like a free-for-all, and you know, there's nobody around you because you know, you're just allowing the cars to go out one at a time. So you can do 80 miles an hour or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing. We have a bottleneck where we are slowing down all the carts, but as soon as they hit the powered rail, you know, it can just zoom off. So anyway, let's get into some bugs that I found while making this. So the first really annoying bug is that tripwire hooks can lose their sense of an entity being present whenever you log out. So you can see here that we have a minecart in there, but it's not being detected. But if we were to like bump it around to make it exit the tripwire hook and then re-enter, then now the tripwire hook does detect it. So it's kind of annoying. I was initially using that to detect the minecarts in the stack here, but because it's not persistent and it stops whenever you log out, then that kind of leads to trouble. So another bug that I found that is pretty detrimental to systems like this. So if you are trying to develop any system based off of a minecart, this might be useful because you may have noticed something like this before. So initially, whenever I made this type of launcher or a type of launcher, I didn't really understand how to make a good minecart launcher. And I was having issues with minecarts coming up here onto the top of the output section and then getting hung up on the trapdoor and not making the jump to fall into the output. I've had issues with that, and I've also had issues with minecarts getting stuck here and not making it into the water elevator. Typically, they just hit the blue ice and kind of get stuck. So I didn't understand why they were breaking, and I had to figure it out. So this one might be a bit confusing, but based on the type of minecart launcher that you use, you can actually have a situation to where the minecarts will get stuck on the track. So this was one of the first types of launchers that I made because we all know you can use a slime block to push things, right? Like to bump entities. But you can see how the minecart is getting stuck on the edge of the rail. So at first I didn't know why that was. I thought maybe it wasn't getting enough speed, but like it's on powered rails, so like how many rails do you need to actually have a minecart jump off of a ledge? Well, technically you only need one powered rail to force a minecart to jump or to send it in a water elevator. So the issue with this relates to the slime block actually giving inertia to the minecart. So this is what makes it so confusing because you can send the minecart down to do a lot of work. You can have it come down a track, pick up items, drop off items, go left, go right, whatever. And then at the end of the track, instead of jumping, it's just going to get stuck. So it is due to the type of launcher that I have here. But if we were to change this up a little bit, so now instead of the slime block giving the minecart inertia, the slime block is really just going to be smacking it into the wall, and then the minecart will launch normally just by having a rail with a powered block. So let's get rid of that. So depending on how you make your launcher, you may run into this problem. But like I said, it only takes one powered rail for a minecart to get launched. So it's not related to speed, but to a bug. So anyway, that is going to be this sorter. It's been a lot of work. I initially had it to where the minecart simply fell from the output into the launcher, and that worked great until I decided to put in an entire double chest of items to see what would happen, and then it started to break. So that is why I had to develop this type of minecart track system here with even with the switching rail. I mean, this has been like 2 weeks. This has been a lot of work to get a system like this made. So for those that enjoy engineering, you may like trying to design a system like this because technically it is really fast. Like the amount of small items that it can deliver is really just incredible. Because it can deliver things very, very quickly. So if you throw in like moderate amounts of stacks, like up to like 3 or 4 stacks of one item, then it works great. Um, but if you were to try to throw in like an entire double chest of items, or an entire double chest of a single type of item, then you're probably going to run into some slowdowns due to that. But overall, I don't know. I think it is a great sorter. It's an experiment on you know, how you can use minecarts. But so in general, that's going to be it. But um, you know, as far as would I actually use this in a survival world, I don't think so. Just because it's so complex and it's so difficult to make the minecarts, you know, like flawless. So anyway, um, it's pretty neat watching it go though, and like you can kind of see like the minecart, the hopper clock timing. So like we have one there, we have one here. You know, they're kind of just doing their thing. They're like honeybees. You know, like they're just doing their own little job and going to work. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, that's gonna be it for the video. So I will, I guess, see y'all in the next video, depending on what I end up doing. Um, whether it's gonna be another type of categorizer or more computational redstone, I guess we'll see. I don't know. After watching Frost Shocula's videos about his shulker categorizer things, I am a little bit more interested in shulker boxes, which I've never been before. So we'll see if I decide to play around with those. But anyway, that's it. So I will see you guys in the next video.